We don't ask people to draw guns on us to try to kill us.
June 7, 2012.
He was just trying to protect his girlfriend.
By 5:11 that morning,
And he got shot and killed over it.
26-year-old Victor Rango became the third person in 3 weeks
Is he alive?
shot and killed by a Palm Beach County deputy.
And then the third cop proceeded to just put his gun to his side and shoot him twice.
Within just a few hours of the shooting, Sheriff Rick Bradshaw was on the record.
Here we are again, armed suspect, gonna shoot one of the deputies, and then we had to take the action we had.
Despite other eyewitness accounts,
They took his gun off of him, threw it offside, away from him.
state attorney agreed with the sheriff, concluding Deputy Michael Suszczynski reasonably feared for the safety of others at the scene. His decision to shoot a reasonable use of force.
And I stress that we had to take this action.
Soon after the shooting, the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office released Deputy Michael Suszczynski's file. His background contained little to be concerned about. A few unsubstantiated citizen complaints, outnumbered by more than a dozen praises.
But the Contact 5 investigators have spent months reviewing records that paint a far different portrait of a deputy.
You knew right away he was a ticking time bomb.
Feline Lehman still quivers just hearing Michael Suszczynski's name.
Something bad's gonna happen.
She claims Deputy Suszczynski roughed her up during a 2008 traffic stop.
He just took my arm and ripped it above my head around my back and threw me to the ground, and I heard my shoulder pop and I was like, oh no, and that's when the nightmare started.
Lehman sued the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office and Suszczynski for excessive force.
I'm now at that point in fear that she is going to strike me or try to escape.
In this 2010 deposition,
So still having control of her right hand,
Suszczynski explains his actions.
I placed my left hand on her right shoulder and assisted her to the ground so I can gain control and handcuff her.
PBSO eventually settled the case, but not before the Contact 5 investigators discovered the agency charged with enforcing the law spent years trying to hide the truth.
Their job is to produce it, not to hide it.
Ken Slinkman is Lehman's personal injury attorney. He spent 3 years battling PBSO just to release Suszczynski's files.
The sheriff was not going to give up that information,
In the process, he discovered so much more.
and we learned for the first time that there were all kinds of confidential, what the sheriff calls confidential files.
So-called confidential files that, in Suszczynski's case, the sheriff's office continually and deliberately refused to hand over, according to court records.
There was a judge who made a finding that the sheriff's office had engaged in fraud on the court. That's a very serious allegation.
Jim Green is a civil rights attorney in West Palm Beach.
Well, there were a number of court orders, and there were to turn over this information that wasn't turned over. I think most people would consider that to be a cover-up.
Did your office engage in a cover-up?
Oh, absolutely not. You know, we handle thousands of public records. Something's going to fall through the cracks. This particular one fell through the cracks. We
Sir,
did
with
not.
all due respect, falling through the cracks is not 2 years worth of, quote, stonewalling in the words of a judge. This case got to the point where the judge's words, not mine, the office continually misled the plaintiff and the court to the point where the judge said, and I quote, "This was nothing short of fraud on the court." Nothing short of fraud on the court?
Well, that's unfortunate words on the part of the judge. We made a mistake. There's no doubt about that. They should have been released sooner than they were, but there was nothing maliciously done here.
A mistake that just fell through the cracks. Sounds innocent enough, but what was it about those files that seemed to cause so much drama to begin with?
Is he a dangerous guy?
I think he's a dangerous guy.
Turns out, inside Suszczynski's black and white files was a much more colorful past. As a rookie cop in Ohio in the late 80s and early 90s, Suszczynski's resume was checkered with reprimands, including a 30-day suspension for police misconduct. In one incident, a witness described Suszczynski as flashing his police badge before jumping in a fight and carrying on like a wild man.
What could very well be a red flag.
Dr. George Kirkham is a criminologist and ex-cop.
You've got to have people who are not going to go off the deep end.
Suszczynski's past goes on. As a young man, he racked up a criminal record with a string of arrests, including disorderly conduct and assault. Suszczynski paid fines and moved on.
That's a real warning sign.
And then there's this, a 2004 pre-employment psychological evaluation taken when he applied to be a sheriff's deputy here. In it, a psychologist flagged Michael Suszczynski as a moderate risk.
I would not hire the person. No, I don't believe most chiefs of police or most sheriffs would hire them. You stop and think about it. The worst possible place to put someone who has a moderate risk is out in a patrol car on the streets. It's not worth taking a chance on because there are legions of good candidates out there.
Since he was elected in 2005, Bradshaw has been Suszczynski's boss.
So what does moderate risk mean to you?
That there's no red flags going up, that he shouldn't be hired.
Really?
But according to the psychologist's own report, moderate risk is a red flag. There is serious question regarding data relevant to this candidate's suitability for employment, suggests very careful scrutiny.
Based on everything that we've laid out for you, criminal background, an employment background that is questionable at best, that includes reprimands, suspensions, misconduct as a police officer, a moderate risk psychological evaluation. Had you been in the position to hire him, Sheriff, would you have hired Deputy Suszczynski?
Moot point. The fact of the matter is, he was hired. All I can be responsible for are employees that I inherit going forward.
Today, Deputy Michael Suszczynski is patrolling the streets.
I have nothing at this point in time that leads me to believe that this deputy has acted inappropriately any way, shape, or form since I've been here.
Feline Lehman disagrees.
But he was brutal. He was excessive. He was a brute.
Who had a history of behaving rough, and the sheriff's department spent years deliberately withholding it.
The search for truth should not be a game of hide the ball.